Good morning and welcome to this webinar, Managing Culture Across the Food Supply Chain. I'm your moderator, Stacy Atchison, publisher of Food Safety Magazine, and this is the 8th webinar in the Food Leadership Series brought to you by Food Safety Magazine and is sponsored by LRQA. The Food Leadership Series brings together some of the food industry's leading figures to showcase their experience and analysis. The format for this webinar will be a little different from what you're accustomed to. I will pose questions to our distinguished panel for discussion, which will be followed by polling questions for all attendees, so keep your eyes open for those. Please also submit your questions for the panelists throughout the presentation, and we'll conclude the webinar with a live Q&A. Today's event is being recorded and is archived on our website, food-safety.com. Bringing together unrivaled expertise in certification, brand assurance, and training, LRQA is one of the world's leading providers of food safety and assurance solutions. Food safety culture has been on the agenda for many companies for some time, and it's widely accepted as the key to making step change in food safety standards. Now, codex and regulations in the EU and the US have introduced food safety culture into their framework for the evaluation of food companies. We'll examine the importance and impact of food safety culture in 2021, what leaders in industry are doing to demonstrate that they have a strong food safety culture in their organization, as well as how to best extend this throughout their supply network. Our panelists today are Sharon Burkett, Vice President, Global QA Operations for the OSI Group, Sean Fear, Director of Quality, Conagra Brands, Kimberly Coffin, Global Technical Director, Supply Chain Assurance, LRQA, and me. I'm not a panelist, though. Threw me there. So for our first topic, food safety culture has been on the industry agenda since 2015. Why does it still feature as a hot topic for discussion today? Kimberly, we'll start with you and then pass over to Sean.
Thanks, Stacy. Really great to be here today with everybody and to share some discussion around food safety culture and specifically really kind of the benefits and some tangible takeaways, I'm sure, for everybody that's joined us. In answer to that discussion topic, Stacy, I was just saying that I think we've all recognized as an industry that food safety culture is really kind of the essential next step to actually really achieve those higher levels of food safety. And I think we spent a great deal of time up until probably the last year or two kind of really trying to understand what it is. And a lot of the focus has been, what is it and how does it fit my company and how can I make a difference within my company? And people recognizing that food safety culture isn't the same. It isn't just about a template that you can actually put into your organization and actually look at how you then build procedures and systems to actually improve it. And I think the dialogue has changed more recently. And although we're talking about it, it's more about how to do it and how have we done it and what have we learned from actually doing it. And I think what has been going on and some of the challenges that we've had that as a result of the pandemic and the impacts on all of our operations is one of the key things that we've identified is people are the core of actually how we've been able to maintain business and how we've managed to go on and probably also where some of those greatest challenges for our companies have been, whether it's been through trying to manage through restricted movement and having the right people available at the right time to keep operations going, and more recently about having actually the labor to actually undertake the production that we actually need. So I think dialogue has been ongoing, but definitely it's changed in recent times with regards to food safety culture.
Sharon?
Yeah, sure. Our executive leadership, they wanted to make a difference in food safety, and they are choosing to do this through strengthening our already strong culture of food safety. And as this topic continues to penetrate the food industry, more of our customers that are globally and their consumers are asking more questions. They definitely see the value in food safety culture. and they want this to make an impact. As you already mentioned, the regulatory agencies, they're seeing this as a maturing topic, and it's capturing their attention as another approach to food safety. If we all remember, right, there was a time when we all thought passive was the way to ensure food safety. But we have people that are assessing these hazards, that are monitoring the critical control points. And, well, food safety culture is about behaviors of people, not the credibility or the bulletproof HACCP plan. And so as it continues to grow and it continues to penetrate throughout the food industry, it will maintain a relevant topic around food safety, because it's another approach, another tool in the toolbox to make sure that we produce food safety.
Great, thank you. So what impact will the addition of food safety culture to Codex HACCP 2021 and regulatory frameworks have on the food industry? And we'll see if I can get it right this time. Kimberly, we'll start with you, and then also, and then pass to Sean. For real this time, Sean.
Fantastic. And let's see if I can actually maintain connectivity this time as well. Look, when I think about the recent changes, and really they kind of started in February 2020 of the GFSI kind of formally incorporating into their benchmarking requirements, food safety culture, and then, extending, if you will, through the framework that the FDA put out with regards to smarter food safety and their blueprint and food safety culture featuring there. And then most recently from a Codex HACCP perspective, I think as an industry, we're very much driven by, and Sharon alluded to this in the previous topic, was we're very much driven by procedures, by controls, by systems, by frameworks, by methods that we apply with regards to food safety. And that's historically how we've managed food safety. And those are typically, they've been very much quality and technical led types of initiatives. I think, with food safety culture and this recognition that it is really just the identified need for a higher level and more holistic understanding of the importance of food safety by everyone within the organization in order to produce safe food, as well as looking at kind of those behaviors that sit and recognizing good behaviors that underpin that awareness and the understanding of what those expectations are. It really is just a demonstration that we've matured as an industry, as have the standards that we tend to operate within with regards to demonstrating excellence in the manufacture of safe food, and have really kind of, and I think Codex HACCP puts it as the best, is that it's set out kind of as a general principle in the recent changes to Codex HACCP. And what that tells me is it's a recognition that for our systems, for food safety, our procedures related to food safety really to be effective, that well and truly, it recognizes food safety culture as a prerequisite. It is one of the things that we have to have in place before we build those systems, before we actually, look at implementing those procedures and really well and truly embrace it as the foundation, one of the founding elements with regards to everything that we do in manufacturing safe food. When you start thinking about it in the regulatory frameworks, I think one of the interesting things is, again, it's part of the Smarter Food Safety Footprint that's set out by the FDA, and it encompasses not just kind of the inspection protocols and the compliance components related to kind of standards and regulations, but they've very much taken a broad brush approach in looking at it's from farm through processing through to the consumer, and recognizing that the consumer and awareness of the consumers have a role to play with regards to having true food safety culture across our supply chains. Sean?
Thank you. Before I say anything more, I just want to thank everybody for the privilege of speaking here today. What will the impact be? Well, first and foremost, it's leading to conversations. We're here today, because of that. And I think these conversations will gain momentum, and they may likely lead to good standards. And the challenge, I think, for everybody will be to find that sustainable path forward and we'll move away from a subjective culture to a universal measurable set of standards. And first and foremost, what I like about food safety culture and what I like about it being talked about and included in Codex HACCP is that, culture is more than safety knowledge. A few of us have said that already. It's more than food safety knowledge and adhering to regulations. It's employee engagement. It's teamwork. It's having consumer empathy, and that we do what's right for the health and welfare of our consumers. And in these pandemic times, I think it's more important than ever that we're talking about culture, because employee turnover and acquisitions, they're all going to force us to adapt routinely. And having a strong culture will help prepare us for the adaptations that will be needed in this challenging business environment, whether it's supply chain or keeping enough people hired with the high unemployment. It's just an extremely relevant topic. And I think the impact, as I said at the beginning, more conversations and development of some good standards that can be used. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so we've come to our first polling question for today's session. We'll give you about a minute or so to complete this. So what prompted your company's food safety culture journey? You can select from one of your 5 options there. Okay. It's always fun to see those come in. It's rather even there. Kimberly?
Yeah, look, what I think is great that, almost 60% of people said it's part of the way that their company has always operated, as well as that focus on people and focusing on people and empowering them to actually understand what they need to do and to actually prevent food safety risks from occurring within the operation. I think that's a real positive from my perspective with regards to those results. Really pleasing to see.
Yeah. Okay. For our next question, when did your company start its food safety culture journey and why? Sharon, we'll start with you.
Great, thank you. I think maybe we probably started similar to the most of the industry. We started around 2016, 2017 timeframe. It was when BRC added it to their standard. I think it was version 7 at that time. And, at the time, there was starting to be some industry buzz. There were definitely some early adopters into the process. But it was important for us to start thinking about it. And during that time, we celebrated just one day centered on food safety. And we thought, oh, hey, that was good. We wanted the shop floor to be more aware of the ways that the food could become unsafe. And on that one day, we tied everything to what we do at home when we prepare meals for our families or even for ourselves. And then we created a vision of scaling up into the manufacturing site, right? So let me just give you a quick example. On this one day where we celebrated food safety, we talked about preparing food, cooking with clean pots and pans, plating food on clean dishes, and using clean utensils to eat with. And then we scaled it up into our manufacturing sites. How we pre-rinse and use soap and hot water to clean our equipment or all of the surfaces that food touches. Just like what they do with their dishes at home when they clean them before they put them away or before they put food on them. We discuss about how we need to take some things apart at home in order to clean them better. Otherwise, mold will grow in these places. Like when we're using a blender or a mixer and we need to get that gasket at the very bottom out of the blender, otherwise it looks really gross the next time we use it. We do this so everyone can relate to the process of cleaning in our manufacturing sites. Then we talk realistically about those risks. The risks if we don't do or do something wrong. And it really is amazing how the light bulb comes on and everyone can start relating to this. But it was one day, but it was really good, right? And as a result of this one day, our executives, they really wanted to make a difference in food safety through culture. And it fits so naturally with so many of our company values, like putting people first or strive to continuously improve. And we wanted to learn more about how we could tie our company values to food safety culture, how we could have our employees feel that same way every day they come to work on that one day we celebrated it in 2017. So we wanted to embed the culture of food safety in both their heart and mind so that when they went home for the day, they felt confident and comfortable knowing that they produced safe food and that their families would be safe eating food that they produced. So that's kind of both when we started and why we started. And I'll turn this over to Sean.
Thank you. Yes, we've had a pretty good food safety culture for a number of years. Unfortunately, about 15 years ago, we had a major outbreak, and it was very influential in helping us to focus on improving our culture. Also, going back 15 or so years ago, we tended to operate like a holding company. We owned a number of brands and businesses, but we didn't have that true centralized structure that we do today. I think as a result of moving past being a holding company of food 15, 20 years ago, the unfortunate outbreak that we had involving peanut butter, and then our leadership team's decision to reinvigorate our food safety culture by appointing somebody to get a group of people together and actually lead efforts to improve culture across our entire organization, corporate, plant-wide, co-mans, and supplier-wide. So it's been a long journey for us. It's picked up steam recently, and I don't see us slowing down anytime soon.
Great. For our next question, how did you get started, and what barriers or challenges did you encounter during rollout, and how did you overcome them? Sharon, you can start us off.
Great, thank you. Like I just previously said, we got started by celebrating a day that was centered around food safety in our homes and with our families. We didn't really have a burning platform, so that's where we started to get organized around it. We did do benchmark surveys around the world, more than 60 locations, and we learned a lot from the results of these surveys. So we use this information to inform us on going forward. But, being a global organization, the way that OSI Group is, it sort of presents its challenge just because we're global and trying to operate across many time zones, but also the 17 different national cultures adds a lot of complexity into having a global message around the way that we want our employees to behave as it relates to food safety. We definitely have engaged executives that set out to make a difference, and this helped. And culture ambassadors, site champions for communication channels, we all needed to align around a global message and have everyone rally behind it. And that really helped kind of break down some of the barriers around national cultures and being global. But I would say one significant barrier, right, is because of our global scale and because operating in 17 national cultures, the sites didn't really see the value in the level of communication that we were doing and messaging that we were planning to focus all our energy on the shop floor. This is where we chose to start to get our message out about behavior and people and how we wanted them to interact with food safety and be engaged in food safety. They felt it was just another quality topic, and we made progress in overcoming this because we definitely had the executive leadership visibility. But another way we overcame it was through our ambassadors. And the ambassadors, it's a group of 15 to 20 people, and they're all functionally diverse. So they're not just QA people, but they're operational leaders. They're internal communication experts. They are owners, right? And so not only do we have this functionally diverse team to give credibility to the work that they're trying to do, but they're also geographically diverse, right? So we have people from Australia and China, Taiwan, Canada, many different countries that are participating on this team. So we can make sure that we don't make any mistakes around the national culture with the words that we choose to use or the icons or pictures that we choose to use to represent different things. And then to move forward and to continue, let's say, overcoming this barrier, we have a rhythm of communication or a frequency of activities and messaging and content for each month, so they know that there's a routine coming and that it's not just a one and done kind of plan and program. To you, Sean.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, you heard me mention that we reinvigorated things about a year and a half ago, and I was privileged to get that group together and to lead that team. And critical to our success was the early foundation of forming a working group. And we put together a good cross-functional team: ops, quality, micro, auditing, training members, etc. We also formed a good partnership with EH&S, Environmental Health and Safety. And the reason why we did that is, we're fighting for the same attention of the same audience, right? And so we wanted to make sure we had a very coordinated effort with EH&S, so we didn't overwhelm everybody. The other thing we did when we kicked things off as a core team is we said, go outside the organization, just read something on food safety culture, whether it's Frank Yiannis's book or GFSI white papers or other various publications in the EU. And that activity really opened the door of awareness to what was out there and also what was not. And it gave the team a chance to talk about what we might want to do. And so the team had a number of ideas, but two questions remained. What do we need, right? There's a lot out there, but what do we need? And how do we convince leadership that our ideas matter? And so one solution because we did see that as a hurdle, right? I mean, team gets together, comes up with a bunch of ideas. How do you sell it in, right? So we did a company-wide survey, which we felt gave us a great deal of leverage. We partnered with a very reputable survey company, and we were able to get 85% participation rate, that's just fantastic. And it gave us a lot of direction, but it also gave us the street cred, right? I mean, it gave us that credibility to say, look, the people have spoken, and this is what we're seeing in the results and hearing in their voices when they wrote in. And so it helped us overcome what we had predicted could be a hurdle to achieve, the closing of those gaps. And so we're still in that process. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we were delayed in getting our survey going, and we received our results only a few months ago. But we now have our recommendations out there, and we're working to action against those. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. For our next question, in a practical sense, how do you assess and measure food safety culture? Sean, we're going to start with you on this one.
Okay. Well, short answer is that there are many ways you can go about assessing. Step one, I think, is just ensure that you have that foundational infrastructure, adequate training, some audits, clear communication, good feedback loops, training KPIs, corrective actions, meetings and minutes, things to action against. I think without that foundation, it would really be hard to do any sort of assessment. But, other things that you can look at that help measure would be, lower your turnover. How can you do that? We know that if you train and they leave and then you have to retrain, there's that gap, right, in taking those trainings and applying them And so lowering your turnover can help. So if you're measuring turnover, obviously you can use that to assess. Your educated management team, science-based approaches to food safety, all of those things I think can help put a metric on your food safety culture. And most importantly, though, is don't underestimate engagement. That there is the knowledge, but then, which I call the head tools, but then there's the heart, and that's that empathy. And that empathy is much stronger when you have an engaged workforce that operates as a team rather than a bunch of individuals. So, Sharon?
Yeah, we started doing some benchmark surveys back in 2017, 2018, also with a commercially available, reputable survey company. And we got that information back. It was a lot of information, I must say, a little overwhelming, coming from so many facilities globally. But it gave us a lot of good information. And now we're actually starting to collect, let's say, more routine, more regular employee feedback, which is really short surveys, to help us get some unbiased information from our team members on how they think and feel. But I think you're right, Sean, that there are other ways also that you can, in a practical way, kind of feel or assess the culture at locations. Of course, you have to be kind of open to it and see beyond just the facility appearance or some other things that might be glaring in your view. But you can use your KPI data. We see reduction in food safety incidences just in general around the globe, which I think is a positive impact of working to strengthen the culture. Improving the team member engagement and understanding or their commitment to food safety. Definitely you can see that in the way that they respond when they see something out of the ordinary or when they see something they don't expect or don't understand, and they raise a flag and ask a question rather than just ignoring it. Even the site leadership, right, being more visible on the shop floor and being proactive around food safety. It's quite practical. You're actually seeing them on the shop floor and seeing them take action. And I think our shop floor employees, they want to see the leadership take action. They want to see the leadership do what they are telling them to do, right? And so it kind of all connects and fits together then. And making sure that food safety, whether it's the KPIs or audit topics or customer food safety concerns or questions, that it is an agenda item in every business meeting so that we talk about it and we don't just gloss over it. We have more shop floor level employees. They tell us exactly what the food safety expectations are of them in their job role, as well as for working for OSI. Of course, they could be more explicit as it relates to the job that they're currently doing, but they know what the risks are and they understand it more from a holistic view of our manufacturing processes in other working areas as well. So I think those are some good practical ways besides just conducting formal surveys.
Great. Okay, so now it's time for our next poll. How does your company measure or assess the maturity of food safety culture? And again, we'll give everybody a little bit of time to weigh in here. Okay. I hope, there we go, everybody. We got some feedback here. Again, there's sort of that median area again, Kimberly. Does anybody have any thoughts about the results?
I would just say that it kind of reflects what we just responded to in the last question, that there's different ways to measure or assess food safety culture.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks everybody for participating in that. And now, what tangible benefits have been realized that demonstrate your company's food safety culture? Sharon, we'll start with you.
Great, thank you. I think it resonated when Sean brought this up earlier, right? Teamwork, employee engagement, trust and integrity, those are all very tangible benefits. Seeing a reduction in food safety incidences around the world, as I mentioned just before, even having a stronger, trusted relationship with our customers. New customers, they like what they hear about food safety culture, and they like seeing it when they are doing plant tours. So those are all, I think, some tangible benefits as well. We have improved, as I mentioned, engagement and understanding of commitment around food safety. Everyone knows in our locations, all our team members, that food safety is their responsibility just as much as it is the food safety manager's responsibility, right? We are all responsible together for food safety. And I think another benefit is the site leadership being more present and more proactive, just being out on the shop floor rather than in their office trying to address, whatever has got them occupied for that day. I don't know, maybe I want to throw this other one out there. I'm not sure how everyone feels about it, but maybe even a reduction in our recall insurance premiums that we pay, right? All our companies pay an enormous amount of money for insurance. And by developing a stronger culture around food safety, I would imagine there is a reduction in those premiums that we pay. So those are my starting points. Sean, do you have some other? I'm sure you have other ideas as well.
Well, I'll touch on the recall reduction because unrelated to our rejuvenation, in the past 15 months, prior to that, our senior leadership team got many of us together and said, look, we're seeing too many recalls, and it's not good for our consumers. It's not good for our shareholders. It's not good for brand integrity. And so in addition to the insurance, like you mentioned, right, there are other detrimental effects. We don't want to lose confidence in our consumers. So, we got together and we started working on these 12 must-dos. And really what it boiled down to is, the training was there, but let's take a look at the recalls that have affected us, and let's pair those against some of the policies and procedures that we think could be very preventative in stopping that from happening in the future. And by putting those together and placing a greater emphasis on those areas, we were able to impact it at company sites. The challenge for us now, though, is that while we have seen some reduced recalls at company sites, right, we still have to deal with the origination of a recall from incoming material or at a co-man. And so there's more to be done on that, and we clearly recognize that there's more to be done on that, and so there'll be more to come.
Great. What have you done to extend your food safety culture through your supply network, which you just alluded to as well, Sean? But Sharon, we'll get started with you.
Sorry. I think Sean is starting this one, yeah?
No, you're getting started.
Okay, no problem. So I would say we include things around, for our suppliers, for example, we're including content about food safety culture in our process of vetting new suppliers, or in our process of even suppliers that exist, how we talk about it. We talk frequently with our customers about this topic, and we have a lot of customers that are really driven on this topic around food safety culture. We definitely host internal webinars with our teams to learn what we're doing as it relates to food safety culture. So we use these webinars where we reach out to our suppliers who, some of them are really progressive leaders around food safety culture. And we asked those suppliers, hey, could you present to our company about what you're doing for food safety culture so we can learn from you? And we share that responsibility. So we are happy to feature a webinar as a customer, right, as a customer facing to that supplier. And so that we can share information and learn from each other on what's working, what activities don't work to strengthen a food safety culture. And then we also try to engage some industry and influencers, like Bertrand from Camden BRI, asking him also to do some webinars within our network. So not just within our own companies, but inviting our suppliers or even our customers to join that kind of webinar. So we're taking a leadership role in establishing kind of these sort of webinars like we're doing today. But we narrow the scope of the topic to maybe learn some things specific about, I don't know, how we communicate, or something specific about what activity would engage our employees the most if our employees are in a certain demographic or in a certain geographical area. So I think those are some ways. I pass it over to Kimberly then, I think.
My notes say Sean, but I think there might be something going on here
No
with my notes. Yeah,
I'm happy to take it. So what we've done is that we don't draw a distinction on the importance of culture between our manufacturing sites, our co-mans, and raw material suppliers. Our standards must be met by all, and all must demonstrate a commitment. So the challenge then is, how do we positively influence the network to think and do as we think and do? So one existing practice is our annual supplier summit that shares best practices and acknowledgments. And I think that just goes a long way. We know that employee acknowledgement is important, so supplier acknowledgement equally important. And a future initiative that we have in the works is a video. We've been working with the Stop Alliance. And this video shares the story of a real person who's impacted severely by foodborne illness. And this approach should move us beyond the mind, you heard me mention earlier, the mind training, and into the hearts of employees to help influence why culture matters by demonstrating what can happen when systems fail. And so it's our intent to very selectively show that video to our employees, as well as share that video with suppliers and co-mans, and help people see food safety the way we see food safety, which is, again, getting beyond the mind and getting into the hearts so that we can, protect our consumers. And Kimberly,
okay, great.
Or where should we go?
Look, I've got a couple comments that
Excellent.
I'm happy to share as well. And I guess it's more from our position as a service provider to a number of different companies and in various sectors across the food supply chain. And love the examples, Sean and Sharon, that you have shared, and think they're fantastic with regards to, how do you actually extend that and the importance of actually extending your learnings, what your beliefs are with regards to food safety into your supply chain so that you have kind of one common view, and very consistent with, a number of the customers that we're working with by way of supporting their assessment processes. And increasingly we're seeing, this is forming part of that supplier approval and that continuous improvement and working with their existing supply partners, with whether it be raw materials or service providers that they work with. And, in both cases, in a number of cases, it's around using that assessment partner, somebody like LRQA, to help them with assessing the maturity of their suppliers, supporting, looking at and evaluating how well their expectations that have been set out with regards to code of practices around food safety culture have been embraced at that supplier level. And in all cases, it's been an interesting journey from an assessment perspective, because the assessment is not really in that compliance space. It's about really taking and coaching, working with those suppliers to actually, through whether it be through assessment criteria that are very specific around kind of the standard and the how they expect things to be, and then looking at and identifying, if you will, gaps to that, then come back and formulate kind of the maturity of that supply network. Who are the leaders? Who are the followers? Who are people that have, gaps that need to be addressed? And then using, if you will, the outcomes of those assessments, not being punitive, so not being nonconformances, but actually using that information to look at what do we need to do to actually help and collaborate with our supplier base to actually lift their standards, give them the tools, the resources, share the learnings, and really, if you will, be a supply partner in driving higher levels of maturity across that supply network, recognizing different players have different levels of maturity. And it's just about really sharing the tools, sharing the things that they've learned to actually benefit the whole, which I think is a really great approach and really essential if, as an industry, we're going to actually lift standards holistically and really get food safety culture to be one of those fundamental prerequisites to the way that we actually manage food safety risk.
Excellent. Thank you. And now, how can the level of maturity of food safety culture demonstrated by suppliers impact their risk rating? And my notes say, Kimberly, we'll start with you, but.
Perfect. Yep, I'm prepared to do that. And I guess
Excellent.
just building on kind of to, some of the, the ways that we've seen companies, look to try to extend that food safety culture. We're also seeing that companies we're working with, when they're looking at kind of risk, and they're looking at kind of the impact to how they actually assess their suppliers and assess how frequently they need to assess or verify the operations of suppliers. They're looking more holistically. They're not just looking at kind of those core elements anymore with regards to, defects or nonconformances or audit outcomes. They're looking more broadly with regards to a broader set of critical risk factors. And food safety culture is a key with regards to assessing, if you will, the resilience of an organization, the reliability of an organization, and how well they are prepared. Do they have the right tools to actually mitigate risk to my brand? So, because when you're looking at kind of that supply network, you're trying to assess and risk rate them with regards to the impact they're going to have on my brand, on my consumers. I think it also definitely has once, kind of looking at that food safety culture and the maturity of that food safety culture, it also gives a great read and a great recognition of, those companies that really look at food safety from a whole of business perspective, because they also understand, that the overall and overriding risk of that supplier is not just reliant on one or two individuals within the organization to actually ensure that their expectations or their specifications, the requirements of food safety are going to be met. They've got a deeper level of confidence and a deeper level of trust in those supply relationships to do the right things. And I think it changes that tension between supplier and customer, and it starts to relieve some of that negative tension and make it more about a one focus, a one journey, and really a collaborative approach with regards to getting the right outcomes on the table to the people that we feed.
Great. And Sharon?
Yeah, I think to what Kimberly said, we're routinely evaluating our supply chain. We definitely want to buy from the best suppliers that represent and protect our brand, as you mentioned, Kimberly, and those that are engaged and in touch with important food safety topics. OSI, we are setting the expectation for our suppliers, and we measure them against those expectations. We spend a lot of time with new suppliers and resources, and we communicate often with those suppliers that are partners to us. But it's the ones that are in between, right? The ones that are more transactional than partnering that we want to have more influence over. I think we all have those kinds of suppliers that are transactional suppliers. We need them, but how do we influence them more? And as we heard Sean talk about in the last message about hosting Supplier Summit, we do some of the same thing. We host supplier meetings. We have even one-on-one where we go and visit those supplier producing locations. We openly discuss those KPIs, how they engage with their employees, what current progress they're making, or what their plan is around food safety culture. We talk about what they're doing well, where they can improve on. Of course, these are like natural conversations that we have with our suppliers. Also, we have the same thing with our customers, right? We make sure food safety is always on the agenda when we're talking with our suppliers. So I think when we all align on what the expectation is, and we do our job related to food safety, the whole world's food supply chain is safer as a result of all of that, from all our hard work. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. And now for another poll. What do you think is the most significant benefit of having a strong food safety culture? Well, this definitely, it reinforces the conversation every time we do one of these polls. Reflecting what you all have seen said there. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, and what I find remarkable is how low the recognition of the impact that it can have on a company's bottom line and operating efficiencies, as well as helping to better understand areas to target for improvement. Those in my mind, I don't know what Sharon and Sean think, and I don't mean to put them on the spot, but I see those as featuring really low from a significant benefit perspective.
I would agree. First and foremost, we want to reduce incidences. And in order to do that, we want that engagement and that ownership. So I might be tempted to select all of the above if that were an option, because we should be doing all of those things. But, the cream rises to the top. And it's hard to argue with this poll in terms of how people have answered. Certainly that's what's important to them. Hopefully we weren't too influential in the things we said, right? We biased our audience. Sharon, if you had anything on that.
I think you're right. I would have also selected all if that was an option, select all. But I think in the immediate, right, reducing food safety incidents and events and engaging employee ownership, those are two, I think, immediate benefits. But if you look beyond those, then you start really getting the longer term benefits, as Kimberly said, the direct impact on your bottom line, or understanding where you need to improve and target those areas. Those are kind of longer term benefits than the immediate ones.
And I guess
Great.
that goes a lot to the overall maturity as well of kind of where we are on that continuum of food safety culture. That's probably a really great reflection of where we are from an industry perspective and kind of the art of the possible, as I often say.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you all for such a great discussion. Before we have our presenters address some questions that have been submitted throughout the program, I wanted to remind you that we'd love your feedback on our webinar survey to help improve our programs. And that's on your screen now. But we'll go ahead and get to our first question. I got to move my question box around so here I can read them. Okay, how do you develop a food safety culture within a packaging manufacturer environment? What do you recommend for getting the people more engaged, aware, and involved in a culture? It's tougher to tie with when you're when the nature of your environment or product is not a food product. So specifically related to packaging. Does anybody have any feedback?
You know, I'll say on the surface, you might think that's true, but as a company who experienced a recall due to a defective package, I think we had some foreign material that was present as a result of the manufacture of the product. I would say you have the very same challenge. Your package is the seatbelt and the airbag of the automotive, right? It is there to protect your food.
Nice.
And if it fails to protect the food, there will be consequences. And so I don't think it's too hard a stretch. Obviously, you'll have to. I don't know what your packaging is. I don't know who submitted it, but I think it's equally important. Your package is the last line of defense to protect that food, no matter what that package might be. I don't know if others have a thought, but
I think I would just add that when it comes to packaging, we all buy food at the local retail grocery store, right? And we either avoid the ones that have damaged packaging, or we, when we bring it home and we go to open and use that product, we have some discovery as a result of the packaging failing, right? And so I think we could use those personal experiences to help launch a program in my packaging manufacturing space, right? We can talk about where the failures were, we can talk about our customer complaints, and we can bring all of this together to really tie it into engaging them to do more, to do a better job, and raising a flag of when they see something that's not right or out of alignment. Those are some ways. I think it boils down to a lot in communication, right? And communicating what the challenges are.
Right. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. What do you think is the number one priority for a company starting their food safety culture journey?
what's your roadmap? Have you sat down with your team and just laid out all of those elements that help support and build it? So I'm talking beyond HACCP plans, but have you worked to create that executive summary for food safety culture that again provides that guidance? It provides the why. I think what I hear most often when I'm in conversations about food safety culture is if we can convey the why and we have the substance, the information, the policies, the procedures, all those, and we've done a good job to explain the why, then the path will become a little bit more self-evident. But you've got to start there by making sure you really just gather up all your tools and get them out there and make sure everyone understands the why behind them.
I sort of think you need to set the expectation. What are we expecting our employees to do? It's yes, and I think when you set the expectation, you have to tell them why we want them to do that as well. But sometimes that comes before the whole plan comes together as a plan, right? What do we want our team members to tell us about? What actions do we want them to do? What do we want them to look for? I mean, our shop floor employees, they're the ones that are there every single day. They see every pound of product that's produced or every kilo of product that goes in the box. And they're our eyes and our ears and our nose, right, to feel the pulse of what's going on. So we want their feedback. If we declare to them what the expectation around food safety is and the expectation we have for them, and communicating back and communicating what's going on, I think that's a good starting place. And then as we start learning these things, of course, some other things we need to train them on what to look for. We can't just expect that they're going to come in and know what to look for. But I think then the plan all starts coming together.
Great. Kimberly, did you have any advice to share, any observations on that?
Look, I think it's about, really focusing on what do you have? Because in many cases, organizations will have certain artifacts or certain pieces of the food safety culture journey. So assessing, and it probably goes and builds a bit on what both Sean and Sharon said, is what are those key communication channels? What are those key requirements around food safety? What are those key training elements? And actually kind of pull together those artifacts, pull together those tools, and actually look at them with a lens of empowerment and setting expectation, as opposed to the lens of they're there for control or for procedural, to follow line by line from a procedural perspective. Because in many cases, I think it can, and then, once you kind of understand those key tools or those key pieces of the puzzle that you already have, is, picking one place where you want to win. And I love Sharon's example earlier about we just started with a day. We just started with a food safety day, and we just made it all about food safety and brought it back to something that was real, not technical, but real for everybody that was involved, and got the whole of the business involved in that one piece to start from, because it can be really overwhelming, really, really overwhelming to start that journey.
Indeed. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for our questions today. Please join me in thanking Kimberly Coffin, Sharon Burkett, and Sean Fear for their discussion, as well as our sponsor, LRQA. If you have any additional questions or comments, please don't hesitate to click on that email button in the console. Please visit food-safety.com for the archive of this presentation, as well as information about our upcoming events. We appreciate your time, and we hope that you found this webinar to be a valuable experience. Have a great day, everyone.